the end of the day, selling is transferring a feeling. If you don't have the feeling, you can't transfer it. If you don't have a good, positive feeling, dude, you're an actor. You have to sell and run your business from a place of positivity. And however you get there, God bless you. Welcome to the Pete Primeau Show, episode 42, Why Mentors Matter with Doug Stewart. And I'm just going to pay the bills real quick and we're going to get into it. This show is sponsored by Sell a Million, my book, 101 tips on how to make more money if you own a furniture or a mattress store. And the best compliment I ever got on this book was from Doug Stewart, who is here. And he said, take the word furniture or mattress, and this is just a great marketing book for any business anywhere. So thank you, Doug. And my other sponsor who pays the big bills, the Mattress Industry Network on Facebook. The Mattress Industry Network on Facebook is the only group anywhere that I know of who is run by retailers for retailers. So if you own a furniture or a mattress store, you sell mattresses at retail, you really owe it to yourself to join this group. It's a free group. It's over 1,000 members strong now. And just go to facebook.com/groups/mattress industry network. Join today. It is a great group. And thank you, Steve, for your support of this group, of everything that you do. The Mattress Industry Network's core values are helping each other to build, market, sell, and succeed in the mattress industry. If you don't belong to it and you do sell mattresses, you got to join. Doug, welcome to the show.
Pete, what's up, man? How are you?
Dude, I'm going back to 2015 when we used to do my first show together.
Yeah.
We were doing podcasts when podcasts weren't cool, man.
Yeah. I don't know where it was going, but it was certainly a good experience.
So, Doug, I spent the weekend reading this book, 5.5 Mentors, by you, and I have to say this: great job, my friend.
Thank you.
Great job. Do you mind if I read what you wrote in the book that you sent me?
No, go for it.
Made me cry. Pete, I'm not sure if this book would have ever been written if you had not set an example with Sell a Million. Thank you for your friendship. Blessings, Doug. You have blessed me in more ways than one, Doug, and you don't even really know how much. But I am going to start the show off with this. I would like you to define mentor, because I think that sometimes we get the idea of someone sitting at the foot of a master, almost an apprenticeship type thing. And that's a mentor, and that's the only mentor. And I want you to kind of broaden the definition and give us your definition of mentor, and then we'll start getting into the meat of the book.
Yeah. So I think, Pete, the thing that helped me the most was making the delineation between mentorship and apprenticeship. Like apprenticeship is really important, but it requires a commitment between two people, kind of like the master and the teacher and the student, right?
Yeah.
Well, mentorship is a bit different, because the way I've seen mentorship is much more of an attitude, and it's much more like self-care than it is being cared for, right? So we think about the way we think about self-care today in a lot of ways. And I wrote about this a little bit in the book. We think about escapism, right? Self-care is like, going and getting a massage, or like going shopping, or like taking a nap or taking a vacation. And that stuff is important. And then there's the other part of self-care that's like perennial self-care, like the type of self-care that your future self will thank you for. And when the big shift for me in the way that I grew and developed and continue to grow and develop was really thinking about mentorship in terms of something that I was able to participate in if I made the choice, and I could include everyone and everything in that process. And so I didn't need permission or another person necessarily to be able to get something out of being mentored by my my surroundings, my experience, and even the people that were obnoxious.
So talk about the anti-mentor. That's where the half comes in from your book title. And I think that's an important place for us to start. I've never heard anyone discuss this. And that's one of the things that I love about everything that you do. You're almost a contrarian, but not quite. You're not a contrarian for contrarian's sake.
Mhm.
You're just wired differently, and you really seek to understand and delineate and help clarify things for us, things that we should do on our own, but we don't even do. And then a lot of times, well, let me share this with the audience. Doug, years ago on a podcast, became an anti-mentor for me. So I'm a poor boy who grew up in Schenectady, New York. I believe in the past, before I met Doug Stewart, that I was a self-made man. And he said, there is no such thing as a self-made man. And my BS meter went a mile high. And I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean? I didn't have one paper route. I had two. And at one point I had 3 paper routes. I paid my way through school. I did this. I did that. I worked 3 jobs. I ate, a macaroni and cheese. And you guys would eat ramen noodles, but I ate macaroni and cheese. I didn't have an air conditioner. I was dirt poor. I made it on my own. And after I got done with that little internal rant, I saw a picture. And it was my dad.
Mm.
And he said, you can do anything you want to do, but you're going to have to work for it. We're not the Rockefellers, honey. We're not the Rockefellers. You're going to have to work really hard, but you live in America. You can do anything you want to do, but you're going to have to work really hard. And then I said to myself, oh my God, Doug's right. I was blessed by a mother and a father who supported me. We didn't have any money. Make no bones about that. The reason I got the paper route is because I had 1 pair of jeans and I wanted another pair of jeans.
Mm-hmm.
But we didn't have the money for a second pair of jeans. So I realized that Doug was right. There is no such thing as a self-made man. Of course, my heart breaks for everybody that doesn't have that situation, but I digress. So the anti-mentor can be somebody that you absolutely can't stand, or somebody that just causes you to think, or an experience. And what makes a difference, Doug, between whether we learn or not from that anti-mentor? Because I think it's important.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Pete, a lot of it really has to do with our perspective on what it means, and it's like you mentioned, I'm not a contrarian for contrarian's sake. I don't try to be. Sometimes I am, and I have to watch that pretty closely. But in general, I think language matters. Like here, a quick recent example. So my son just turned 3, so this was probably 6 months ago. He was a little delayed in his speech. And so it was something we were really working with him on and thinking about. And it turned out that there was a particular part of the day where he always seemed to be more frustrated, more testy, more likely for a bit of a meltdown. And we couldn't figure out why. Like, why this time of the day? And it was normally just in the morning after breakfast. And there was one thing that changed with him that caused him to stop having that meltdown at that time. And it was 2 words. The 2 words were miss you, MISSYOU, miss you. And what turned out was my son would miss me when I would go into my office after breakfast for work. But before he was able to say it, he didn't have the language to be able to communicate it. So it stayed inside of himself. And so because he couldn't say it, it caused frustration, it caused confusion. He would get irritated much more easily. So language and us being able to speak out what our experience is such an important thing. And so for me, that's why I take words like mentorship and apprenticeship, and I want to set them beside each other and go, okay, precisely what does this mean? So that sort of leads me to this idea of anti-mentor. Like in the beginning, this concept has really evolved for me. Like in the beginning, it was like anti-mentor is like pick the people around you that are the most obnoxious or that you don't want to be like, and then use that as an example and then try to reverse engineer. So how did they get there and how can I keep myself from going there, right? But as it's evolved, it has also been people that have a different perspective, that come from different places, that see the world differently. And I think the biggest thing in the way to sort of unlock the opportunity to develop from those people is knowing that it's not personal. Like they're not after you. And even the times that it feels personal, it's still not, because, and this is a question that as I've coached people over the years, I've asked them this question. Like if in that moment where they were mean-spirited or hurtful, if the Lord would have come down and paused the entire situation, plucked you out of it, and replaced you with someone that's just a lot like you, would they have treated that other person the same way? And the answer is always yes. Right? So now that doesn't mean you're not at fault for something, or you're not deserving of the treatment you're getting, or you don't have an apology to give. But what it means is that people make decisions and react and respond to things based on who they are, not based on who you are. Right? So once you know that, you can go, okay, so I don't have to let my ego get involved in this, because they're not really doing this to me. They're just doing this in front of me. Like I just happen to be the person that's on the other end of this thing. So I can ask myself, so what is it that I can learn from this? And then also interrogating my own reality enough to go like, okay, so do I believe this thing? So I'm having this disagreement. Maybe it's political, maybe it's religious, maybe it's business, whatever it is. I'm having this disagreement. If it's not personal, then I can ask myself, why is it that I believe this and they believe that? Because there's so many beliefs that we have that we've inherited, or that are convenient, or that work in our maybe social or economic or professional bubble, but it doesn't work everywhere. Right. And so I should be able to have the integrity to look at things that make me uncomfortable, or that differ from the way I see the world, and be able to look at them somewhat objectively and go, maybe I have something to learn here.
Right. The only way you can grow is if you're open to growth.
Yeah.
And that's something that, you know, is really at the heart and soul of this book, 5.5 Mentors, How to Learn, Grow, and Develop from Everyone and Everything. There's always something to learn in the good and the bad. Um, and it takes a certain amount of courage to challenge your own beliefs within your own head and to really open up and question, because a life where you don't question yourself isn't worth living. You have to question yourself, and you have to question everything from your most fundamental beliefs to your most out there beliefs. Always question and
Yep.
always grow. I mean, we're put here to grow and to become more than we are.
Yep.
I love this. I'm going to read this word for word. This isn't actually in your introduction, and it is something that there are people out there, for whatever reason, there could be hundreds of reasons, and it's one of my worst fears, and I know it to be true, that there are people out there who could be so much more than they are, but they don't. And here's your permission slip from Doug Stewart. I'm going to read this word for word, so forgive me. By the power vested in me from the divine creator of the universe, I, Doug Stewart, officially give, fill in your name, full permission to pursue your passions and to accept yourself as the innately great and priceless person you are. From this day forward, you will double down on your strengths, forgive your weaknesses, and continue to see every victory as an opportunity for gratitude and every failure as an opportunity for wisdom. Guys, that's on page 15. And before that, there's a great little exercise that's literally worth the price of this book. And by the way, anyone who likes my YouTube channel and makes a comment is going to get a free book because I have two and I only need one. So, what do you say, Doug? What do you want to clean up from there?
Well, the permission slip thing is funny because it's something that I looked for a very long time in my life. I look for someone to give me resources, to give me an opportunity, to give me, and what I found is that to get the best mentors, you have to do things that are attractive to the mentors. Like I've been blessed with some of, in my opinion anyway, some of the best mentors that I could have ever asked for, but they only showed up once I started doing my work. And this is kind of the punchline of the whole book, right? I lay out 5.5 mentors, and the final mentor, the fifth mentor, is the only person that I'm really talking about, right? Like the fifth mentor, the worldview mentor, that's very much the traditional idea of having the Mr. Miyagi or the Yoda. Like, but the thing is that person doesn't show up until you have an attitude of the other 4.5 mentors, right? And just a couple other points that I thought about while you were talking. Questioning is such an important thing because I strongly believe that anything that can't be questioned can't be trusted. That applies to everything. And so if I can't question it, then I can't trust it. And that goes for my belief system. That goes for people around me. That goes for, what I believe about like absolute truth and total reality. Like we have to be able to question, and anything that will not allow a question is something that we in general can't trust. The other thing that I thought about, Pete, going back to the self-made person conversation is, something that I tell my 10-year-old is that you can be anything you want to be that you're good at. Like telling our kids, like, you can be anything you want. Like that's maybe the worst thing that we could tell them. Like you can be anything. Well, no, you can't. Like I can't. I'm 6'7". I'm 240 pounds. I can't be a jockey in the Kentucky Derby, no matter how hard I work, no matter how much I want to be it. Like I'm massively dyslexic. I can never be an English professor. Like there's just things I can't be, but I can capitalize on the talents that I was given if I'm willing to put in the work, right? So like your talent is something that you didn't give yourself. This is things that, but then the question is are you willing to do the work to turn that talent into skill? Like I was talking to a friend the other day, and I've gotten to a point in my life where I'm far enough in my career to not be the kid anymore, but I'm not far enough to be the elder, right? I'm kind of like somewhere in the middle, right? And I was telling them that it was interesting that no one has talked about my potential in a really long time. Like early in my career, they talked about like, oh, you have great potential, but nobody says that anymore. Now what they're saying is they're asking me for my production. And so they talked about my talent, my possibilities, my potential in the beginning, but there comes a point where people go, okay, talent's not enough. Have you done the work? Have you developed yourself to a point where the talent is now something that can be utilized in a real world way, and so that you can demonstrate the skill that's associated with the talent? But you can't be anything, but you can be anything that you're good at if you're willing to do the work. Right?
Absolutely.
Rant over. I'll step off my soapbox so we can get on
No,
with
dude, you can keep going. I'm never going to get to the end of my questions. No, I made my peace with this before we even started. I, there's too much that I'm curious about and too much that I want. I'm never going to fit it in an hour. So, if you have anything you want to keep going on, go ahead. If not, I'm going to ask you about Sarah Baker.
Yeah, let's talk about Sarah.
Let's set up Sarah Baker and why she's important. And um, I've heard this before. You went into more depth in the book, and Doug, I have to say something to you. You in this book really open yourself up more than I've ever seen you, uh, and I want to compliment you on that because some of the things that you talk about aren't easy things to talk about.
Yeah.
But Sarah Baker, I mean, she's like an angel on earth. And it was very interesting to me that she was the exact human being that you needed at that exact time.
Yeah.
And she was there. And then before she could become a crutch, she was gone.
Yeah.
And it was almost like, wow, it's, anyway, go ahead. Tell us about Sarah Baker and why she's important and why she's in the book.
So I don't think I've ever talked about it this way, but Sarah was not very nice. Sarah wasn't nice. She was kind. And the difference between those two words really matters. So when I think about nice people, I can't. It is my least favorite. I would rather be around cruel people than nice people. And so what I mean by that is as an example, and I think I talked about this in the book a little bit. But when I think about nice people, it's like you go to lunch with a nice person and the conversation's nice. There's nothing that might make you uncomfortable. They stay away from the hot topics, so it's nice, it's comfortable, it's cool. But as you're eating, you get like a big piece of spinach in the middle of your teeth. But the person's so nice. They don't want to make you uncomfortable. They don't want to make themselves uncomfortable. So they don't say anything. They just continue in this nice conversation. And then you get up having this nice time, feeling warm and fuzzy and good. And then you go to your next meeting or your next thing with this big friggin' piece of spinach in your teeth. Like that's what nice people never help us to be any better. The difference between nice and kind, you do that same lunch with a kind person and they are willing to make you uncomfortable, and they're even willing to make themselves uncomfortable for a short period of time in order for the best possible outcome. So they're willing to go, man, it's going to make me uncomfortable to tell Doug he's got this big friggin' piece of spinach in his teeth, but it would be wrong of me not to. So they're going to go, look, hey, you got this little thing, and we're both going to be a little embarrassed for a second, but ultimately it's better for me. And that's really who Sarah was. She saw me as a person who had potential, but because of the way I thought about myself, and this is what she told me in the very beginning. She told me, she looks at me and she points, and she was not happy. Like it was a bit abrasive. And she says, you know what your problem is? Your problem is that you're a victim, and you're a victim of your own thinking. And she made a commitment to do everything that she could to change my mind. And so she was my college guidance counselor or academic advisor. I guess that's the right term for what it was. And I was in a position where I was about to get to lose my basketball scholarship and get sent home after just being there not even a year yet. Because I had to make the grade that the NCAA says that the high standard that the NCAA holds for the college athletes, which is a 1.8 GPA, and I had a 1.4, and it wasn't because I wasn't trying, although it was because I wasn't trying. That was part of it. The real reason I had a 1.4 is because I had decided who I was. I had crippling dyslexia. I had sensory issues. I had narcolepsy. I had ADHD. I had a list. I had a packet that told me all my disabilities and deficiencies. And so I decided well, why would I try if this is just the way it's going to be? Like, I'm going to fail anyway, so I might as well enjoy enjoy the ride as long as I can be on it. Why would I spend the time trying, and then that's worse. Not trying and failing, that doesn't hurt as much because I have an excuse. I go out and try. It's just no big deal. But if I give it my all and I fail, that hurts, man. I didn't want
Right.
to do that.
Right.
And Sarah, and it's interesting that some people can start out as being one mentor and end up as another. Sarah really started out being sort of like an anti-mentor. She really challenged the way I thought. She challenged my perspective. She challenged me on how I saw myself, and then ultimately ended up being more of a street view or a worldview mentor, someone that I aspired to be. And that was a pivotal moment in my life. That changed my life forever, and really is where the whole concept of like, oh, I don't need some like, successful person to make this big mentorship commitment. Like, I can just ask some questions. I can read some books. I can watch a YouTube video. Like, if I'm paying attention, there's meaning all around me. Like, there's opportunities everywhere, you know? And so Sarah, it's interesting that sometimes we have an opportunity to be disrupted. But if we see every disruption or every person that challenges us as an adversary, we will lose. You have to see people that challenge you as, it's like I say, I think I write it like this in the book, but it's like the people that abandon us teach us to be resilient. The people that challenge our thinking teach us to know what we believe. The people that hurt us teach us to be strong. Like, if you have to go through pain, you might as well get a return on that investment.
For our store owners that have an employee who is not performing up to snuff, I think there's a huge lesson here, and I want you to go into it a little bit with Sarah. Sarah took you where you were and moved you to a completely different space. But she reached out to where you were and
Mm-hmm.
understood that there were some limits there at the beginning that you shed completely, it appears. Um, but she took you where you were, and it wasn't too awfully hard at the beginning, even though it sounds like it could have been very time consuming.
Yeah. Yeah. Pete, it reminds me of like people that, like, you'll hear people say like, you're perfect just the way you are. Like, Pete, that's the dumbest thing. That's the absolute dumbest thing that you can say to someone. Like, of course you're not perfect the way you are. Now, you're valuable the way you are,
Yeah.
right? You're innately and inherently valuable just the way you are, but you're not perfect, and you're not the way you should be. It's great that you are where you are, but for me to look at my kids, or look at my, like, an employee, or to look at a team member and go, you're perfect just the way you are. Well, even if that were true, that will be untrue in 3 months, because something will change and they will have needed to improve.
Well,
Right?
you actually saying that to someone poisons them. So you just ruined it right there. You
Yeah,
just
100%.
poison them, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
whenever we stop as human beings trying to grow and get better, that's the poison pill. That's
yeah,
where the death of your mind and your soul and
yeah.
achievement and everything happens right there. That
Right,
when
right.
you're satisfied, you're complacent, and when you're complacent, you stop striving, right?
Yeah,
The,
yeah,
the one thing that I see with you is you're always striving. You're striving, and I love the article that you wrote not too long ago. It's actually in the book too, about comfort zones,
yeah,
stretching the comfort zones, and just telling someone to get outside of the comfort zone really isn't good enough, and really isn't a service to anybody. Help
no,
them uh, really delineate how to and show them how to
yeah,
is invaluable. So talk about comfort zones a little bit.
yeah. So comfort zones for me have been really interesting, because I think in general for us, like who wants to go through a painful situation? Who wants to be uncomfortable? Like being uncomfortable sucks. So the question is about intended outcomes. Like for what? Like why should I get outside of my comfort zone? Like what's the outcome? What's in it for me? Like what can I expect as in return for this? And so what we tell, particularly young people, we tell them to get outside of your comfort zones, or these like little pithy sayings like success can be found right on the other side of your comfort zone, and stuff like that. And so what I feel about a comfort zone is getting outside of my comfort zone has very little value if I'm just doing it for the sake of being outside of my comfort zone, because we never perform at our best outside of our comfort zone. Like our best performance, our most competency is inside a place where we have comfort. And now comfort and complacency are different. Complacency means laziness or being satisfied with where you are and not being willing to go any further. Being comfortable means you're at your maximum state of competency, meaning, if I have a salesperson and I want them to close a $10,000 sale, who should I put there? Someone that's comfortable closing $10,000 sales, that's done it, that's earned the right, who has demonstrated their competency in the real world, or someone that is just, who averages $700 sales and is going to be uncomfortable doing it? Of course, I'm going to pick the person that's more comfortable because they're more competent to do it. So if we want to get outside of our comfort zone, like, let's know why. So it's not to be uncomfortable, it's to be more comfortable more often. Right? So if I'm expanding my comfort zone, then I have a larger geography where I can be comfortable. If I'm outside of my comfort zone, I'm less competent. So the question is, especially when you're talking about salespeople, my grandfather, who was a brilliant businessman in his own right and had a number of furniture stores when I was growing up, he would always say, you never practice on paying customers. Never practice on paying customers. And so he believed that if I'm going to be uncomfortable, I'm going to be uncomfortable role playing with the other salespeople. I'm going to be uncomfortable having new conversations and kind of bumping through, benefits and features with him or with the rep or with someone else. But by the time I get to the customer, by God, be comfortable, And so that's really the way I think about it. It's like, let's do things. Let's get outside of our comfort. And the way I don't think I talk about it like this in the book, but one way that's evolved is like, this is oscillating outside, 6 feet outside of our comfort zone in order to pull it just a little bit more, to stretch it a little bit so we have more space, so that when we need to perform at our best, we can have confidence, which is maybe a different conversation. Maybe we talk about that in a minute. But confidence is not something you can choose. Confidence is something that you have to earn. You can't just decide to be confident. When people just decide they're going to be confident, that's at best it's arrogance, and at worst it's ignorance. And so as we expand our comfort zone and we're able to demonstrate those things to ourselves, we can earn the right to be confident in areas that we have evidence of competence.
Yep.
That was a long one.
No, that was good. That was good. Hey, I've got to read a quick chapter. It'll take a minute. And actually, this is for you guys who have my book. And Doug, I want you to ask me any questions about this, or just tell me what your thoughts are.
Sure.
And you've heard this before. It's on page 155. It's the very last thing I wrote in the book. It's actually in the bonus section, so it doesn't have a chapter number. It's your sales business. All great retail salespeople have one thing in common. They view their sales as their own business. This mindset allows them to make significantly more money than their peers. More importantly, these top producers are happy and usually enjoy great relationships in all aspects of their lives. Here's what they do. Early. They are usually the first into the store and the last to leave. Why? Because they work for themselves. They are willing to pay the price for success in full and in advance. Commitment. They are committed to success. They do things that other people are unwilling to do to achieve their goals. They go the extra mile to serve their customers and are rewarded with their loyalty. Integrity. Top producers always tell the truth. Their word is their bond. Their customers trust them and always ask for them. That's huge if you're a commission salesperson. Invest. Top salespeople invest in their business. They buy sales books. They go to seminars. If their company does not supply thank you cards, they buy their own. They are constantly looking for an edge to serve their customers better. They invest 3% of their earnings back into their sales business. If you are a serious sales pro and you're not investing 3% of your gross income back into your education, your self-development, you're cheating yourself. That's not in the book. I just gave that to you for free. You're welcome. Educate. They constantly want to learn. One of the most interesting observations I've made in the past 29 years, now it's been 39 years, is that top salespeople study other salespeople and try to learn from them as well as their reps. They use their downtime productively to improve their selling skills. Create. Top salespeople create their own traffic. They don't wait for the door to swing. They cultivate an army of loyal customers who buy only from them. They are constantly prospecting for customers. They do not wait for the door traffic. They talk to their neighbors or anyone that will listen to them about the store they work at. They promote their sales business. And the last one, execute. They follow up on their sales in every way. They always make sure everything is okay with their customers. You know you're on the right track when you are occasionally accused of being paranoid. When you start to become a thorn in your company's side, you're on the right track. In addition to sending a written thank you, they follow up with a phone call to make sure the customer is happy with their purchase. They also start the buying cycle for the next item by offering to keep their eyes open for the next purchase. Evaluate your sales business and consider it your own. What can you do to create more traffic for your business? What say you, Doug? What say you?
It's interesting, Pete. I think what comes to mind for me is the difference between fault and responsibility. It's like we tend to think of those things as the same. We think if it's their fault, it should be their responsibility to fix it. And that's cool if we're willing to be a victim of our circumstance. Like you can completely live that way, and it gives you an out. Like and it can even feel good to say like when are they going to give me this? When am I going to get that? When am I going to get a resource? When am I going to get when am I going to get support? Like whatever it is. But it's like, okay, so it may be. So let's talk about like if you're a salesperson working for a company, it may be their fault that they're not marketing well. It may be their fault for sure.
Right.
But it's your responsibility to make a living and be successful and thrive where you are. And it's the same thing when if you're a store manager, you know what I mean? Like if you're managing a sales team, well, it might be the salespeople's fault that they're not doing the right things or saying the right things or sticking to the process, but it's your responsibility to have an impact and influence that to begin to improve or to get fixed. Like there's so much, I think where we really mess up, Pete, and I know this because I've done it and I still do it, is anytime we're telling ourselves a story about our circumstance or the people around us, where in that story, we're both the hero of the story and the victim of the story, we're on the wrong track. Right? You can't be both. You have to pick. So are you the hero or the victim? In either way, you are your responsibility. So like grow where you're planted or go plant yourself somewhere else. But don't sit around and complain that you're not getting something that you need, because you can do something else, and it feels good to our ego to feel like we can blame someone else. But at the end of the day, even if it's someone else's fault, it's still our responsibility to fix it or adjust it or move ourselves or do something,
right.
And this is the best thing. And maybe I should be careful with this one, but the best thing that Mark Kinsley's ever said to me, and I say that because he said a lot of really good things, and I've learned a lot from Mark over the years. But the best thing he's ever said to me is action reveals answers. Action reveals answers.
Yep.
And so if you think you know the answer, then take action so that you can verify the answer. If you don't know the answer, take action so that you can start to uncover it.
Yep.
But that's the difference between great salespeople and mediocre or failing salespeople, is their willingness to take responsibility for themselves, their business, and regardless of whose fault it is that things aren't going their way.
Right. And you know, today, to be fair, there are a lot of situations that are beyond the control of a sales pro on the retail floor. One of them is inventory or lack of inventory.
Of course.
And while that is very definitive, how you approach that, if you put your head down and you slump over and you let all the energy go out of your body because you don't have inventory, I need you to go shop your competitor, and I need you to find out that your competitor has no inventory either. That's what I need you to do as a salesperson. And then what I need you to do is I need you to come back to reality and say this to yourself. We're all dealing with the same situation. It sucks. It's not easy to deal with, but what can I do to make this palatable for my customer, and so that I can continue to support my family? Because at the end of the day, sales pros, you're there to support your family. You're there to produce results. And I think that Doug's done a great job of talking about that. And we're really kind of veering off of the mentorship thing, but that's okay. This is important for right now.
Yeah. Well, I would say, Pete, that we're right in the middle of it, you know, because
we are in the middle of it.
Responsibility is the through line of development, you know, and like it's like, and I would even maybe take it a step further than going to your competitor. Like, go on your system, go back to your warehouse, like wherever you would look, and like know what you have in stock. Like, that's a good first step. Because if you know what you have in stock, then you can have a more coherent approach to navigating the products that you have to offer the customer when they come in. And then being able to ask appropriate questions to know what their tolerance is for waiting. Like, do they need it today? Are they cool to wait 6 weeks? Are they cool to wait a month? Like, there's some things I'm willing to wait on, but all of that is expectation. But if you don't tell them and they think they're going to get into it's like when I order something from Amazon, I'm a Prime member. So if it's not on my doorstep in 48 hours, in 2 days, I'm freaking out. Like on day 3, I'm losing my mind. Like, where is my stuff? I pay for you to be here. You've told me 2 days. So that's what I expect. But when I order something from Nordstrom, I don't even think about it for 7 days. Because I know that if I order something from Nordstrom, it's going to be 7 to 10 days. But that's the expectation they set. So I'm cool with that as a customer, right? So if we don't know what expectation, and the challenge that we have, the opportunity we have as salespeople on a retail sales floor, is we can't set an overarching expectation the same way that Nordstrom or Amazon does. We're setting expectations specifically by product and based on what we have in stock.
Yep.
And so if that's frustrating, you know, ask yourself, do you know what's in stock? Do you know what you know what a take with is? Do you know what the 2-day lead time is? Or do you know what you have to order and you have to tell your customer, I don't know. But the expectation that, like, people typically don't get very upset because things don't go their way or aren't ideal for them. People get upset because the right expectation wasn't communicated. Like, exactly. That's why I get angry about stuff. Yep. Like, I can deal with something being, you know, frustrating, but it's like, if I make a reservation, then I expect when I get there and go, hey, party of 4 for Stewart, that they're going to sit me down in 2 or 3 minutes. But if when I make my reservation, they go, hey, we're very backed up, we're short staffed, so please be here on time and we'll try to seat you within 15 minutes of your arrival. I get there and I'm cool for 20 minutes. But if they don't set the expectation, even if it's true and they're doing the best they can, I'm losing my mind after 7 minutes because I had a reservation.
Right.
Right. So are we willing to set the right expectations and do the work to know what expectations to set?
Yeah. The first thing that went off in my head as I was asking the question is manage expectations. But you took it a step further and you actually went backwards, which was brilliant, is what are the expectations?
Yeah.
What are your expectations, Mrs. Jones? What are your expectations?
Yeah. And
then,
that starts with their need, like, well, if they're there to buy a mattress and they just moved here, they don't have a mattress, they need one right now.
yeah.
But if they're like, oh, we're starting to look, and so you have a mattress. Yes, I have a mattress. Like, how bad is it? Like, how uncomfortable are you? When would you like to be sleeping on a new mattress? Like, and they go, whenever we find the right one. Well, then stock doesn't matter. In stock doesn't matter. Find the absolute best one that you have on the floor, sell them that one, set the right expectations for when they'll get it, they'll be fine.
Amen.
But if they got to sleep on the floor tonight, they can't wait 6 weeks.
Right. Absolutely.
And if you don't know.
Yep. And if you don't have it in stock, you better find listen, I'm going to tell you a funny story. Many years ago, it still applies today. Had a customer, working with them, uncovered an expectation, had to have it now. Well, we were one of 5 stores. We were large showrooms, 30,000 foot showrooms was a big showroom back then, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And they had to have it. And I went to the store manager and I said, they want something now. And I don't have anything that I know of in the back. Do you have any ideas? Now, this is an interesting thing because, in a lot of ways, sometimes your bosses are your mentors, right? Or can be.
Yeah.
And I said, I don't know what to do. And he said, oh, I have an idea. And we sold off an old floor sample that was a great mattress, but we didn't carry that line anymore. We gave them a great deal and they were as happy as could be and they took it with them.
Yeah.
But we literally had to pull all the sheets off of the vignettes to find the one that he knew he had.
Right.
So I didn't even know we had this mattress, but he did. And we came up with a creative solution. But I want to switch. I want to talk about chapter 6, the digital mentor. And I love this quote by Gary Vee. The internet doesn't care that you're not interested in learning. It will continue to evolve without you. And my hat is off to you for finding a Gary Vee quote without the F word in it.
Yeah, that one wasn't easy.
Mentors come in all sizes and shapes. They're everywhere and anywhere, but we have to be willing to see them. And the one thing that I love about your book is it really opens our eyes to the potential of where they can be and that it doesn't have to be an apprenticeship.
No. There's a saying that goes, the person that does not read has no advantage over the person that cannot read. And, like there's the other saying is knowledge is power. Well, that's less true today than it was before. Like that gets less true every day in our culture. You think it wasn't very long ago in the history of humanity where most people were illiterate. And so the people that held the knowledge held the power.
Right.
But thanks to things like technology and the internet and the printing press, like technology has commoditized knowledge. And so if you have an internet connection, if you have a cell phone, like you have more knowledge at your disposal than any other people group in the history of the universe, with the exception maybe of the aliens that we're going to find out about. And But in terms of on this planet, right, you have more at your disposal. And so, like, this can be escapism, like play games and scroll through social media, like, go for it. But if you're not using that for development, like, YouTube is free. Like, I agree that you should spend, 3% on your development, but you don't ever have to spend money if you don't want to develop in meaningful ways over time, and like that's been the biggest thing for me is when I want to learn something, I learn about it before I ask anybody about it, because
Ooh, let's dive into that. So I'm sorry, Doug, I cut you off, and
no,
God knows I'm great at that. I am the best cutter offer in the world, and I apologize up and down, and then you give me a pass because I'm an old man, and I appreciate that. But one of the things that I've always said to sales pros that work on our retail floors, when you come on a floor, and I worked at a little furniture store called Price Chopper, and it was 6,000 square feet. And then I worked at a store called Kronheim's Furniture, and it was 30,000 square feet. And the merchandise that was available by order, a special order, and catalogs, it was like a quantum leap. And I was freaking out. And so what I did is I looked through, I would take a category, and one day it would be recliners, and I would sit in every recliner. And I'll never forget this. Doug, you'll laugh when you hear this. So we had a Stratford gallery, and I gave our store manager a list of all the chairs that had cracked frames after I spent like 3 or 4 hours in there. And he goes, well, Pete, that's very nice of you, but that's the way they come. It's just the way it is. So I thought that was interesting, but learn everything you can with your own eyes and ears. What Doug just said, it's huge. After you cannot learn anymore, then start to ask your teammates. And then after you've exhausted that, then go to your store manager. So you've learned everything you can learn on your own. You learned everything you can from your teammates, which actually that should never end. And you want to see a funny YouTube channel, a video, the story of when I was on top of a dresser overlooking a vignette, trying to learn how Angel Gutierrez, God rest his soul, who's the greatest retail salesperson I ever worked for, I wanted to hear how he closed the sale. So I literally climbed on top, and he looked up and saw me. It's a whole nother story for another time. But learn everything that you can from everybody on the floor, then go to your sales manager. And then when those reps come in, God willing, they come in once a month or once a quarter. If you're lucky enough to see reps these days, ask them the questions that you have, and never stop learning. And something that didn't exist when I started in 1982, if YouTube was around, I didn't know about it. And I go on YouTube constantly, Doug, and YouTube is a great resource, but there are many resources like that too. There is, if you're hungry for knowledge, there's really great news. You're right. You don't have to spend 3% of your income. If you're hungry, you're really hungry, on LinkedIn, you spend some time on LinkedIn, there are some really smart people putting out great content on LinkedIn. YouTube, it's a great resource. Jump in there, Doug. You had something and I cut you off. I apologize.
Oh, no. Thank you for that. That's really valuable context. When we think about knowledge is less powerful today than it was before because it's been commoditized, that tells us that context is the most important thing. Like, Pete, I can remember growing up being on the sales floor, customers would come in like wanting to know information about products. And they would see salespeople as experts about the products. And so they would listen to them. And I can remember, gosh, I was 16 and, grown people were coming in and asking me content questions about products. And that doesn't happen nearly as much anymore. because they can get all of the content they want. They can get all the knowledge they want online. They're reading reviews, they're asking their friends, they're posting
Should we
on social media, right?
should we just let the 800 bear out of the closet? Your customers sadly believe that they know more than you. And even sadder yet, oftentimes they're correct because you have not earned the right to even be on that sales floor because you haven't done the work,
Yep.
because you haven't been a good student. Now that I slapped you up one side, let me help you. You can learn, and you can learn fast. And there are great salespeople that you can emulate and do things similar to, and there are horrible salespeople that you should look at what they say and do, and never say or do anything that they do.
Yeah.
But there are lessons everywhere you look. There are mentors, there are anti-mentors, uh, they're everywhere. And if you're hungry, if you're really hungry and you really want to get better, it's all there. I mean, there was no LinkedIn, there was no YouTube when I was a kid. I mean, it just didn't exist. You got something, Doug, I can tell. Talk to me.
Well, I think we have to ask ourselves the question, man. Like, do we want to be right or do we want to make money? Because you can know all the right stuff, you can know all the facts, you can know the truth about whatever it is, but it doesn't matter what the truth is. It matters what the customer thinks and believes. So what we
Right.
have to do is contextualize the knowledge that they have, right? So it's a matter of being able to ask questions to help them process through the information that you have so that it corresponds, and then contextualize the information that they've went and got, right? Because it doesn't matter if you're right, if they don't buy anything,
Right.
that doesn't matter. So do you want to be right, or do we get really romantic about our products, you know?
Well, that goes back to taking somebody where they're at and
Yeah.
bringing them to where they actually need to go. And you're never going, the art of selling, the art of persuasion is bringing them where they're at with the knowledge that they have, and encouraging them to open up their minds. But a lot of it has to do with your skill and your temperament. If you get upset that they think they're smarter than you or they know more, if that upsets you fundamentally, you need to find a way for that not to happen, because it's going to happen too many times every day. You're going to end up just destroying yourself. You need to understand that's where they're at. It's my job as a professional sales pro who knows 10 times more than them. And if that's not true, you need to make it true.
Yeah.
Bring them where they are without belittling them, without making them feel small. Kindness instead of niceness, right? Help them get
Yeah.
the piece of spinach out from their tooth, right? We
Yeah.
talked about that earlier. And get them to a place where they come to accept the right answer for their problem, which may not be what they thought it was when they first walked in the store. And that is the art of selling. It always has been, and it always will be. Um, but today, you need to understand that your customers are going to go and they're going to read reviews. They're going to go on YouTube. They're going to go on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, you name it, Instagram. It doesn't matter. Put your favorite social media in there. They're going to do it, and they're going to believe some things that are true, and they're going to believe some things that aren't true. And it's up to you as a sales professional to unwind that. So we went from doing a review on your book all the way mini sales lesson for our sales pros, but that's good. And we're still not done. And so I didn't want to go much past the hour, but I do want you to wrap up with any thoughts that you have. And I want to remind anyone that's watching this, go to my YouTube channel, subscribe to the channel, make a comment, tell me, Pete, Send me my book and don't charge me freight. I'm not going to charge you anything. I'll get a hold of you. Do not put your private information there. I'm easy to get a hold of. You can call me at 419-560-3169 and say, Pete, send me my book. And I'll double check it and I'll send you the book. It's right here. It'll go out the door today to you. And I hope that you get as much value out of it as I have. Doug, you have the last word, my friend.
I think it could be helpful to circle back to the very beginning where you read the inside cover of my book, and I really think that's the most important part of my book for you is what I hand wrote on the inside, because it's really true that I don't think I would have written my book without two things, your book and a book from my friend named Jason Goldberg called Prison Break. And the reason that's true is because you guys being close to me and writing your books humanized the experience and let me see that it was something that I could obtain as well. And if when you wonder, is it worth it for me to do the work, to earn the right? Is it worth it for me to develop myself in meaningful ways? The book that I wrote I think is the answer to that, because when you do the work like you have and you did, Pete, not only do you get to benefit yourself and you get to benefit others, but you also get to inspire other people to do things that they may not have done in the first place. And so, for people listening, regardless of if you're doing it for yourself or for others, when you do it, you benefit everything and everybody around you, whether that's evident in the beginning or not. So I'll end by saying, Pete, you've been really valuable to me for many reasons. So thank you for the work you've done, the work you're doing, and for your friendship, man. It's an honor.
Now, the honor is mine, Doug. In an industry that doesn't have as many young, talented people as I'd like, when I go to market, sometimes I'm just shocked. It's like the zombie apocalypse. I'm seeing 80-year-old sales reps, and I'm like, dude, what did you do wrong that you still have to work? And listen, I understand that there's some cats out there that they made it, they got it, and this is what they love, and I get it. I love what I do too, but Doug, you are by far the greatest talent that I have ever met in this industry. And I just have to say this. I knew you were going to leave the industry. I was as pleased as punch when you came back. I don't know that we're going to be able to keep you forever. I think that the good Lord has a lot of plans that neither one of us really understand for you. Your story is compelling. The knowledge that you impart to all of us. And Doug, you need to understand something. You're my mentor. Yes, you're my anti-mentor every now and again when you really make me think. And thank you for that.
Yeah.
If the unexamined life, it's true, is not worth living. You have to question everything. But in many significant ways, you are my worldview mentor too. Some of the ideas, nobody supported my book more than you did when it came out, and still do. So I appreciate you coming on. I know you're a busy guy, and I'm sorry I went over today. But thank you so much for coming on and sharing. And listen, let's come back on, and we'll talk about something else. I mean, I didn't even get half done with my questions, but that's okay. I knew that was going to happen. And anybody out there, if you want to learn and just be a great student and become the best person that you can be and the best professional that you can be, get this book, Five and a Half Mentors. Anything that Doug Stewart says or does is usually very inspiring and enlightening. And get that book now on Amazon. Thank you, Doug. God bless you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Pete.
You're